Now, when you want to understand the world, you have to go beyond those narrow limits, both in up and down, both in space and time. And then you find that there's a uniformity and extraordinary things happening which you'd no idea of just looking at the world. And this is the fascination of science, really, I think, to uncover so much which is not apparent just in everyday life.
Hi, welcome to Science Night at Glover School. I hope you're all having a good time. As you've all figured out, tonight we're exploring DNA. And the first question you might ask is, what the heck is this DNA anyway? Well, let's ask our friends Tim and Moby from BrainPop what DNA is. Here you go.
The Mysteries of Life with Tim and Moby.
What are you talking about? I didn't wear your hat. That's not my hair. I didn't know you had a portable DNA lab. Okay, you got me. Dear Tim and Moby, why is DNA so important? From Kevin. DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. You can think of DNA as a chemical blueprint for your body. When a carpenter is going to build a chair, the first step is to draw a plan of what it'll look like when it's done. DNA serves as this same sort of plan for your body. Everyone's DNA is different, except for maybe twins. Every cell in your body contains a complete set of DNA. Well, it's not like that. Your skin cells, for example, don't just contain the information needed to make skin. They actually contain the chemical blueprint for your entire body, your hair color, eye color, height, bone structure, everything. Yeah, right? It's no wonder there's so much research going on. Well, there are a lot of uses for DNA. We've all heard of cloning. It's a controversial topic, but the idea behind cloning is to copy the DNA of a living organism and grow a new one. Theoretically, by copying DNA, we could produce countless genetically identical sheep. These vegetables have been genetically modified. Scientists can insert carefully selected genes into a plant to get a better yield with good characteristics, like bigger squash or redder tomatoes, or even corn that doesn't need pesticide. Well, genetically modified food hasn't really been around for all that long, and some folks are a little worried about eating these things and what they might do to the environment. It's fair enough. That is a really big squash. Mapping the human genome is probably the most important DNA project ever. In the year 2000, 2 teams of scientists announced that they had charted all the parts of the human genome and its 40,000 genes. Genes are the sequence of DNA that define individual characteristics in an organism. Well, it's the first step in figuring out what all those biological bits we're made of do. Might also tell us why some people get diseases and others don't, and how mysterious diseases like Alzheimer's and MS work. It's really an exciting time for science and medicine. Hey, let's see who this curly blonde hair belongs to. It's going to say Tim every time, isn't it?
So, everything living has DNA in it. Tonight you'll find out that bananas are living and they have DNA, and you'll get a chance to look at what that DNA looks like. But also, besides bananas, there's bacteria and brown bears and beetles and birds and blue whales. They all have DNA, and this also includes you. You have DNA too. Now, tonight you'll get a chance to see what DNA looks like, and that's that gooey kind of stuff that you'll find from a banana. Now, that's actually billions and billions and billions of pieces of DNA all kind of stuck together. So what does one piece of DNA look like? Well, it's a Turns out I've got some DNA right here in this tube. Why don't you take a look? Here's a single strand of DNA. It kind of looks like a spiral staircase. That's because this single molecule of DNA is actually made up of two pieces twisted together like a piece of rope. Now we can unwind this piece of rope and see now the two strands in red, and in between, in white, are the bases. These bases are made up of letters. Now, this is the code of DNA. Let's take a closer look at that. Here's our alphabet. It contains all of the letters we need to make all the words that we know. Words like cat. As it turns out, the alphabet for DNA is very simple. It contains only 4 letters: A, C, G, and T. If you think of yourself as a book, then the DNA contains all the words that describe what you are. Since there's only 4 letters in the DNA alphabet, you can imagine that the words have to be pretty long to describe all the things about you. For instance, here's a word that many of you have in your DNA. It's the word for blue eyes. As you can see, it's made up of lots of A's, C's, G's, and T's. Well, I know if I read these instructions correctly, I'll be able to get this thing to work. You know, this is pretty complicated, and it's got about 40 pages of instructions to make this thing work. Now, you can bet that you're a lot more complicated than this piece of machinery here. You have to do a lot of different things, so you can bet that your instructions are a lot longer than 40 pages. So, how long are your instructions anyway? Let's ask.
DNA is very long. It's a seriously long molecule. The one copy of the human genome is 1 meter physically in length. But one nice thing is, if you imagine the thickness of the DNA in the human genome scaled up to the thickness of a piece of cotton, then it would actually be 100 kilometers long, a single copy of the human genome.
In the human genome, there are 2.9 billion A's, C's, G's, and T's. If you wanted to read out the genome sequence and could do that at 10 bases a second, ACTT, 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 it would take 11 years to read the genome sequence. It's a tremendous amount of information, and if you print it up on a big wall poster, a tiny fraction of it, it's all A's, C's, G's, and T's.
Well, that's a pretty long piece of DNA. And in fact, if you took the DNA from all of your cells in your body and strung them together, it would make a pretty long string. In fact, it might even reach the moon. Do you think? Well, that was actually one of the questions that you had a chance to answer out in the lobby before the Science Night began tonight. Hopefully you had a chance to put your name in, and I bet some of you will get pretty close. Now, I'm going to leave you tonight with a little animation that I call the Transcription Express. One of the amazing things about your body is that even though this code of DNA is billions of letters long, 3 billion letters, and as you've heard before, if I just said them, it would take me 10 years to say the whole code. But you have the ability, since you grow every day, to make an entire copy of that in hours. That's pretty amazing. So sit back and enjoy the Transcription Express. See you next year. This is a computer graphic of DNA being transcribed. As you can see, it moves along pretty fast. Now imagine you were riding along on that piece of DNA, it would be kind of like a roller coaster. Something like this.
Looking at the world through the sunset in your eyes, traveling the train through clear Moroccan skies, ducks and pigs and chickens call, animal carpet wall to wall, American ladies 5 foot tall, sweeping cobwebs from the edges of my mind. Had to get away to see what we could find. Hope the days that lie ahead bring us back to where they led. Listen not to what they said to you. Don't you know we're riding on the Marrakesh Express? Don't you know we're riding on the Marrakesh Express? They're taking me to Marrakesh. All on board the train. All on board the train. I've been saving all my money just to take you there. I smell the garden in your hair. Casablanca, smoking from the corners of my gold buttons hanging in the air. Johnny Cockers in the square, striped your leathers we can wear at home. Well, let me hear you now. Don't you know we're riding on the Marrakesh Express? Don't you know we're riding on the Marrakesh Express? They're taking me to Marrakesh. Don't you know we're riding on the Marrakesh Express? Don't you know we're riding on the Marrakesh Express? They're taking me to Marrakesh. All on board the train. All on board the train. All on board.
Of course, if you were really riding on a piece of DNA, you'd go a little bit faster. Like this.